Right, so welcome to a new guide on this channel, and on this occasion is the tube culture from Arturia. This is not a review, it's a deep dive guide about this plugin. Now everything on this guide is in chapters, so if you look at the description or the timeline, you can jump to a section or skip the ones you don't want. Now if you like this guide, please like and subscribe, and if you have the money and you want to buy me a coffee, you can go to the links in the description. Right, so this is an emulation of the Culture Volter, and Arturia always expands the functionality of the original unit, adding a few goodies. So then the plugin ends up being its own thing and not just a copy, which is, a good thing. Now let's get to the chase. This is a tube saturation distortion unit, and the keyword right here is tube. Okay, so as any distortion unit, we can drive, and this is like the main control of the unit. So this is how hard we hit the distortion unit, and it will give us more distortion as we drive it more. And it can go from mild to wild. If I put a single tone going from 0, and right here we have a single tone, and it's just a sine wave tone, and it going up is going to start crushing that single tone, and we can see all the harmonics that we get from a dumb single tone. And if I keep going up, notice that the sine wave starts, getting crushed until, we go wild and we crush it like crazy. So if it's doing this to a dumb sine wave, imagine what you can do to your sound, right? It's gonna go really wild, really aggressive. You're distorting a lot. Right, so I'm gonna bring some drums, and I'm using Superior Drummer. So they are just only dry, non-processed type of drums, right? So let's drive it and see what happens as I go up in the drive. We start getting it. Right here we can turn it off and on again, so we can hear the difference. If I keep going up, destruction. Alright. Now, since this can go really wild, the usage of your output and your mix is really important, because maybe this is fine, but maybe it's too much. And since I'm processing the whole drums, the kick, the lower frequencies are just kind of maybe giving me something that I don't want. So maybe just using the blend, the mix, just to create a better blend is a wise choice. Much better, right? Still adjusting your output. It's gonna be something that you must do. Maybe it's too loud. We just can go up or down. This is the, output. Fine. So the most important control is the drive, but then you have the function. Now, this one is the second most important control. And this knob selects which valves you are using. And the original unit, you can do this as well. So the T stands for triad, and the P stands for pentode. So you can go to the web and look it up, because it's a holy grail type of distortion unit. It's the, Culture Volter. So you can just go there and get super technical and get all the information. But the short version is that the triad leans towards the even order harmonics. So it's going to be warm, round sound, right? That's the plan. But the pentode favors the odd order harmonics, so it's like the other side. Still, this is a tube saturation unit, so you get, a combination of both. It's not that you get one thing or the other one. Still, all the 4 different modes give you different flavors, from cleaner sounding to, the last one, which is going to be a little bit more aggressive. Now, if I use the same sine wave I was using before, just to show you how this works, I'm going to go up, and we are standing on triad, and we can see how this is affecting the dumb sine wave. Now, if I start changing the functions, notice that it will affect not just the harmonics that we get right here, but, the sine wave. So this will affect your sound in a major way. If I go to the second one, it's pretty close to the first one, right, on the pentode and the triad as well. But the third one is completely different. It's almost or kind of rectifying everything. If I go up, it's going to get really crazy. So this is how it works. That is how it changes from mode to mode. So all of this is going to affect the sound. Let's bring some guitars and let's just give it a go. I'm going to be playing the guitars. This is the guitar. If I turn it off, you're doing nothing, you know. If I turn it off and start driving, we are driving. Now, we can do a little bit of mix, maybe. Let's go with this one. Now we are in triad. Let's go to the first pentode. And I'm doing it really aggressively so we can hear the difference. Just much cleaner, right? A bit more aggressive. A lot more. And then it goes down. So we can go up, but it's just a little bit different. So all these controls, you know, when you go to different functions, you need to adjust the knobs because the different functions are really reactive to the drive, the bias, and whatever sound that you're using right here. So this is a plugin where you kind of maybe, let's say that you, not constantly, but you need to adjust the drive, the bias, and everything else just to, you know, to get it to find the sweet spot. Okay, so let's talk about the bias. In the real world, the bias controls the voltage that goes to the tubes. And long story short, if you over bias or under bias a saturation unit or an amplifier, for example, a guitar amplifier, if you're a guitar player and you have a tube amp, you have a bias right there. And usually, sometimes you don't get to adjust it, you don't get controls to adjust it, and you should be sending it to a technician to do this. You never do it on your own unless you want to, get killed. So, what the bias will do, again, will send more or less current to the tubes, and this will affect how the unit will operate. So sonically, it goes from a thicker, more round sound to a thinner sound. That's what happens. If I use it on the sine wave, I'm going to do a little bit of driving so we can see how it affects everything, and I'm going to start going up. And I want you to look at the sine wave right here, how everything starts to change when I do change the bias. And it's just, you know, affecting everything. As I go up, there's a point where we're gonna rig it up, and then it's gonna just dull everything. And all the different modes react different to the bias. If I go to the pentode, going all the way up in the bias, it's just gonna pretty much get you nothing. And if I go down, we get back something. So the bias is very reactive to the drive, the input signal, and the different modes that you're using. If I go to the number 3, that is the shape that it's giving us and how the different harmonics that we get right here are reacting to whatever we do right here. So it's a really useful tool. Maybe it's not something that you're going to be using all the time. You just can leave it alone and just leave it at 1, or when you bring a default patch. So as you can see, it really affects the sound that you're working with. So you need to again, just like the drive, use it with care, but be aware that whatever goes in is going to be affected, the bias is going to affect it, the drive is going to be affected, and the functions are going to be affected. So all of these 3 sections work together. So I'm going to bring some drums, and this time is just a different drums. So let's say electronic drums, let's say. So I'm going to go up in drive. I'm going to go to 5 so we can hear the difference, and I'm going to start biasing. Right? That's super different, right? Okay. If I go all the way with 1, listen to the bass, the kick. Right? Very different. So we can adjust this to control that, that low end, because it goes to the thinner side of things. Now, still going to different modes. It's going to sound really different. And there we go. There's a point where we are just getting that. Nothing. Let's go to the third one, because it's the most aggressive one. Let's see what happens. instantly get a change. And it sounds like almost, it's like breaking up. So you could use this. I'm gonna go really aggressive. Remember that you have your mix. So just finding the sweet spot right here and adjusting your mix, you can get a good, cool blend. The original sound is completely different from the processed one. And it doesn't sound bad, it's just different. So let me just go back to default and we're going to keep moving. Always when you are working with distortion units, especially with distortion units, sometimes when you crank it up, it's not going to sound that good. And my recommendation is to use the full context of the mix, because sometimes it just doesn't sound good alone. And if you think about this, if I do something like this, it sounds good. For me, it sounds good, but maybe it doesn't sound the way you want to. Right? Something like that. Right? Maybe it's not that pleasing. But maybe then when you audition whatever you said you're doing in the context of the mix, it's gonna really make a difference and it's gonna sound good. So you always need to check whatever it is that you're doing within the context of your mix. If not, you're just gonna make the wrong call. Okay, so let's talk about the presence, the air, and then the off, this section right here. So as you can see, this is off, it's all the way off, and we are doing nothing, and all the different types of different functions are going to be affecting, how the plugin works. Because when you throw this on a channel, it's doing a little bit of harmonic distortion by default, right? So the air and the presence, what they will do, they will just boost your high frequencies. So if I do air, which is the middle one, it's going to boost the high frequencies, right? So pretty simple, and we get it right there. Now the presence is going to be a little bit different because it's going to give you that tiny boost that you get right here at the highs, but it will do on the mid-high frequencies, not just on the highs. So all of this is just going to affect sound because it's just going to go up on this side of the spectrum. Right, so let's bring some drums. I'm doing no drive. If I do a little bit, what you see right here is just a representation, right? So it's not it's just a representation. In real life, it's just a little bit different than this. So I'm gonna drive it a little bit more, maybe more output, so we can just go up. And I'm gonna be using the air. This goes really bright, right? The presence. Really different. I'm gonna go down in the output because we're going up. But now if we drive it, we're gonna really hear the difference. I'm gonna go off. Dark. Brighter. A lot brighter. Off. Alright, so let's take a look to the advanced section, and you get some really cool features. You get a filter and the stereo mode for the input, and then you get a gate and you get a comp. We're gonna talk about this in a second. So first we get the input. I'm gonna be doing some playing. Now when you go to the advanced section, you are gonna be getting a spectrum just showing you what is going on, which is really great. If I go up in the drive, it's going to give you an information of how much in and how much up you're doing. And by clicking the display, you can just switch between the in and the out. And it's even telling you how much is going through the device, how much you're doing. Right? I wish all the Arturia plugins do this when we use the controls right here. Just a fantastic thing. Now, since we are driving, I'm gonna drive it, right? And we can, we are doing less output, even though it sounds more aggressive. and I'm gonna go back here. So this one is gonna chop the low frequencies. And all of this is input, which means pre-distortion. So what we are doing, we are just saturating or distorting the higher frequencies, and we are chopping the low ones. Still, remember, you can bring the mix down and make a blend. Let's do some air and presence. If I turn it off. Right? So yeah, so this is what you do with this, and then you have the other side. You're gonna be chopping the highs. If I go all the way up, you can hear how this sounds. So maybe you do want to maybe saturate this section. You can just leave it there, and then just make a blend. Right. So it's completely up to you, depends on what you want to do. Now, then you have another thing, which is going to be the stereo mode. Right, so it says LR, and it says mid, and it says side. Maybe you're thinking, oh, okay, so we can do mid-side. Well, not really. You can do LR, which is what we've been using. It's just the standard stereo, right? This is what this is doing, is processing the stereo information. If you have stereo, if you have mono, still going to do the same thing. But then you have the mid and the side. Now, when you go to mid, this is going to it's going to process the mid information only. It's not going to affect the side information. So only the mid is going to get, distorted. If you go to the side, it's going to grab your side information, and then it's going to work with that. If I play it again and go mix all the way and I turn it on, I'm not doing any cutting. And we are doing a lot of drive. Of course, I'm going to turn the presence and the air off, and I'm going to drive it. So we're getting just the sides, and I want you to hear the sides. If I go to the mid, we get it right in the center, where the kick and the snare is. That's why when we go to the sides, we hear an impact on the sides, because this is where the hi-hats and the high frequencies are. But on the mids, we have the kick and the snare, so we are just getting a lot more of that. And the LNR is just going to be pretty much everything. Really cool, right? Hear the claps. I mean, when they hear them, we can make a blend. Right, so really cool features. Now, I'm going to go back to default. And I want you to listen to the gate and the comp. So this is what essentially is going to work like a gate, right? Before the input gets saturated, or it's gonna work as an expander. It's like a little bit of an upwards expansion, So the best way to understand this is just by checking it out. So we have some drums. I'm not doing anything. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the gate side of things. So notice that everything is super tight. It's because we're using a gate. So everything's tight. So now when we drive this, again, everything is just going to be tighter. Now, again, you need to use the mix control. If I go back to nothing, it's everything. Tight. Full. Still, you can go to the other side of things. If I go this way, it's going to, work as an expander. Right, you can go really crazy and go down in the mix and get, very unique sounds. Nothing? Now, if you want just to tighten a little bit, you can get it from here. This is just going to give it to you. I'm going to turn it off. Right. Nice little addition that, Arturia gave us on this plugin. So back to a default patch, and then we have the output section, and this is just very simple. It's just an EQ that we get on the output section. So if I maybe play the same thing again, the EQ is on by default. I can turn it off, turn it back on, and what you get is going to be a chop on the lows, but this is post, not pre. This is affecting the wet signal. Now what comes out? And then you just can chop the highs, because sometimes when you saturate, and maybe you add presence, you go, maybe crazy, go like there, you're gonna add a lot of high frequency, so you can just roll off a little bit of those highs. On top of that, what you get, I'm gonna go less. On top of that, what you get is a tilt EQ. So you're favoring the low sides, you're boosting lows and cutting highs, or you can boost highs and cut lows. But it's a tilt. You can do one thing or the other one. Now, you don't need to go really aggressive, you just can do a tiny little bit. And it's gonna give you more highs or more lows. Right? And if you don't want this, you just can turn it off and use whatever other EQ after this plugin, right? So that's it, that's the whole plugin. And I'm gonna give you my opinion. This is a deep dive, so I usually don't provide my opinion. I just show you the controls and how to use it, and that's it. And it's not about my opinion. I think it's a great plugin. It gets the job done. It gives you that, that vibe that we want, the bias and everything else, the functions, everything that we get on the hardware unit. But and then you get extended control. So it's a really cool plugin. You can use it on drums. You can just use it on snares, guitars, synths, vocals, on anywhere you want. And the additional display for most people is a good addition, because you can see what you're doing, how much you're chopping. You can see it. Still, you need to use your ears, but sometimes you're not getting it. You can go right here and just confirm or just see what you're doing wrong. Alright, so that's it. If you liked all this and you learned something, remember to like and subscribe, please. And if you have the money and you want to buy me a coffee, you can go to the links at the description, and you will find links for PayPal, for YouTube Thanks, and Patreon. Maybe you can be a 1-month patron and buy me a coffee. Alright, so see you on the next one.